morning. This is Dan Wade, the Department of State Treasurer. I want to welcome you all to the April 2022 edition of Ask Me Anything, the teleconference we have monthly with the Treasurer. It's the Treasurer's opportunity to tell you what's on his mind and your chance to ask him what's on yours. And as you all know, we will start with some opening remarks from the Treasurer, and then we'll just open it up for questions. Treasurer Folwell.
Thank you all for being with us today, and it's a very active day at the Treasurer's Office. So we just got through the Council of State meeting where we unanimously passed a resolution for another tranche of the built-in C bonds, and this is a result of the good working relationship that we've developed over the last year and a half with Secretary Boyette at the DOT. We have the Local Government Commission meeting this afternoon where a lot of topics will be discussed. Probably including the auditor's report that's just come out regarding Spring Lake and some other issues. And we're blessed to have some folks visiting with us in the office today from the press. And with that, I'll take any questions you might have.
Thank you, Treasurer Folwell. Now, those of you who've been on the call before know that this is pretty freewheeling. There's no order in which we go. We'll just entertain questions as they come up. All we ask is that you identify yourself and your publication. And with that, we're ready for questions.
I have one. I'm Josh Schaefer from the News and Observer.
Hey, Josh.
Hi. Secretary Folwell, thanks for having us here today. Regarding Spring Lake, how involved was the Local Government Commission in oversight of the town after the first audit in 2016? And should it have caught any of the mismanagement that was cited in last month's audit while they were happening?
Josh, a great question. I was not here until 2017, and I think that the issues of Spring Lake started popping up into my radar about a year and a half, 2 years ago, and as soon as it did, we have been trying to work with that community to save Spring Lake. And all we're interested in is figuring out what's right, getting it right, and keeping it right for those citizens, taxpayers. And I can tell you that I very rarely speak on behalf of the State Auditor's Office, but the State Auditor's Office as well as the State Treasurer's Office has expended tremendous amounts of resources to try to peel this onion. And as you've seen from the recent State Auditor's report, the more we peel it, the more we cry. And I would like to think that we're done peeling it, but I'm not so sure.
Thanks. You got a follow-up, Josh?
No, thank you.
All right.
Josh, let me just add to that, for example, when we had to take over the books of Spring Lake last year, I believe we had to make 3 physical visits to produce the same signature card to change who had authorization to write checks off the city checkbook. I mean, I know nobody likes to get granular into the details, but this is what we are dealing with in terms of Spring Lake. The fact that this is really happening, and especially with what the auditors just reported on. You know, you can't keep giving people access to this checkbook when they're writing checkbooks to their loved ones for their nursing home needs. So we've taken it very seriously. We are looking forward to continuing to work with that community. And there's been some other things going on in Spring Lake, and I'm sure a lot of that's going to come out in our Local Government Commission meeting this afternoon. And highly encourage and welcome you to join in, especially as we come up on the topic of Spring Lake when the state auditor will be able to be there and speak for herself.
Thank you, Josh. We're ready for the next question.
And we're still looking for the 35 cars in Spring Lake.
Hey, this is Gary Robertson with AT.
Hey, Gary.
Hi. Could you just give us, I know we talked last month about the Russia asset divestment issue. Has anything changed over the last few weeks in terms of your opinion, basically to focus more on Washington and what they could do to help pensions that may lose money due to Russian companies, creating, monetary damages. And do you still see that divesting from our state's pension funds, Russian investments is still not necessarily the way to go at this time?
Right. Great question. So let me break this down. Our investment in Russia, forgetting about McDonald's and Apple Computer, but our direct investment in Russia pertains to an investment that's been in this pension plan probably for 10 years. It's the BlackRock MSCI ex-US, that means no US stocks, index fund. We don't pick what's in the index, and we don't choose what's in it, what's out of it. That goes for the Standard & Poor's index, the Russell index, or this MSCI index. That's for the plan sponsor to do. So these direct investments are mainly inside of this international index fund, which has been in this plan for probably a decade. I'm estimating that number. Okay. Secondly, the General Assembly, I'm very grateful, has the House unanimously passed a resolution which we've now sent to Congress to get Congress to amend this law. It's been on the books for about 50 years that could possibly give us an exit ramp to a very long runway to sue President Putin for these murderous activities and try to recoup some of these investment losses. We all know what we see, and we all know how we feel about what we're seeing regarding Ukraine. But at the end of the day, the reason why I think this is important is that unfortunately, I don't think this is the last time this will need to be used. And that's why we're asking for Congress to change this law. Since we issued that press release, Gary, within 3 days, we had conversations with nearly 24 state treasurers and plan administrators from around the country who are very, very interested in this tack. Secondly, we've had some very high-level discussions with some very prominent anti-terrorism lawyers who are subject matter experts on how to approach this with the change in law from the Congress or even without it.
So what was the value again of the Russian assets in that BlackRock, for lack of a better term, mutual fund?
Index fund. It's estimated about $80 million, which currently has a value of nearly zero. We don't know this to be a fact, but it's our understanding from listening to other folks on this call that we have as a percentage one of the lowest exposures to direct Russian investments of any plan our size. That's anecdotal. So bottom line is this pension plan continues to be one of the best funded in the country and extremely safe. But these are investment losses, and as a fiduciary, we have a loyalty and duty of care to try to recapture those any way possible.
So the reason why, in layman's terms, the reasons why you're not looking at divesting from that BlackRock index fund is that it's just a small percentage of the entire portfolio within that index fund, and the only way to remove that investment would be to divest from the entire BlackRock index fund. Is that right?
Right. To summarize in my words, to do what you just suggested that we do is not possible. We do not control what's in the index. As you said, we could just sell the whole BlackRock MSCI index fund. But of course, if we sold that, it would be at a mark-to-market value that reflected zero value for these investments. But lastly, BNY Mellon, who's our custodian, like you have a custodian on your IRA account, they're our custodian for the whole Treasurer's office. They've stopped trading in these securities. So everything is locked down, either from the plan manager or the custodian. All these are locked down. So it's not, I don't want you to interpret that I have no interest in divesting of these, which would be completely inaccurate. I'm just trying to actually operationalize what needs to take place given the fact that all this is locked down.
And just one follow-up: what is the value of the state's investment in this BlackRock index fund?
About $9 billion.
So really, 80 million out of 9 billion is invested in Russian assets.
Yes, and that 9 billion is out of 120 billion.
Mm-hmm. All right, great. Thank you.
And if that number of 9 billion is incorrect, we will directly call you and let you know. But I think it's my last estimation. It's about 8.8 billion.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Gary.
Thanks, Gary. We're ready for the next question.
Yes, I have a question.
Could you identify yourself, please?
Yes, this is Steve Devon at the Federal Observer.
Hey, Steve.
Hey, Mr. Tripp. Back to Spring Lake. Some of the folks in town there, I know that I believe you and the auditor both had expressed some dissatisfaction with the town's response to the auditor's report. And some folks in the town, kind of feel like maybe like on the new board, the mayor specifically, feels like maybe they are being kind of punished for what previous boards have done. But how do you feel as far as just generally, absent from the report, from the response to the report, of how the town is doing, and including recently hiring Mr. Durham from Wake County as the interim town manager?
Steve, great question. I forget, I think it may have been in your paper that I forget what the word that it wasn't malicious, but one of the board members had used a very strong word regarding how they thought they were being treated. I nor the state auditor have anything to gain or lose by saving Spring Lake, and that's our only interest, is saving Spring Lake. And the fact is that we are dealing with a situation where, whether it's this mayor or this board, I believe, know that instinctively that there's more peeling of this onion to take place. And I just can't imagine, when there's more work to do, that they should place a value on the enormous amount of effort that our office and the state auditor's office has put in to try to save Spring Lake. You're either one or two teams. Either you want to save Spring Lake or you don't. We're in the position of trying to save Spring Lake, but it can only come through competence, governance, transparency, discipline, the challenging of assumptions, and the willingness to make the tough budgetary decisions to get Spring Lake back up on its feet. I mean, this is the second time this has occurred in less than a decade. It's incredible. And whether it's this board or the old board, there's still a lot of work to do regarding Spring Lake, because there is no reason that community nestled between Fayetteville, Fort Bragg, and Pinehurst, there's no geographical reason why it can't be successful. So I can tell you that the Bible says that when you're faced with anxiety and uncertainty, your only option is to give more. And that's what we intend to do at the State Treasurer's Office regarding trying to save Spring Lake. And we hope that board and that mayor will make the decisions necessary to do that.
Thanks, Steve. Do you have a follow-up question?
Particularly, how do you feel about the new interim town manager, Mr. Durham.
Yeah.
Are you familiar with him?
Met him for the first time yesterday, and I did want to tell you, Steve, there's going to be a letter presented at the local government commission today regarding, for example, the lack of compliance with open meeting laws at Spring Lake just in the last 3 weeks, and other issues that are very much concerning to us. And let me just say that as far as this response to the state auditor's report, I mean, the state auditor was looking at the finances of Spring Lake. The local government commission are the ones who have assumed responsibility for the finances of Spring Lake. There's no one more qualified to comment on the finances of Spring Lake and the auditor's findings than the people who have the control of the finances, which is us. And so let me be clear about that. And then there was an attorney opinion regarding all that of how the response should have gone. And the auditor took both these and put them together and produced both of these in the audit report. We have no interest but in saving Spring Lake, but we've got to figure out what's right, and we got to get it right, and more importantly, keep it right, since this just occurred less than several years ago. So getting back to this letter that's going to be issued today, Steve, talks about compliance with open meetings laws, compliance with the provisions of the Local Government Budget and Fiscal Control Act, willingness to work collaboratively with the staff of the Local Government Commission. I mean, these are all things that are being communicated to the town.
Okay, I appreciate it.
And by the way, Steve, when Spring Lake is saved, we may have some donuts or something. We'll celebrate for about 5 seconds, and then we got to get on to the next one. Because there's a lot of stress going on, especially in rural North Carolina, with water and sewer districts, counties, and cities.
Thanks, Steve. Good questions. We'll move on to the next question.
Hey, Mr. Treasurer, can you hear me? Brian Anderson here with WREL.
Hey, Brian.
Hey, I have two sets of questions for you. One, going back to this $80 million. I know when we spoke last month, you had mentioned it dropped from 80 mil to about 30 mil or so. And is it like 1 million today, 2 million, 0 today? What's the number that it's worth exactly?
That's a very logical and crisp question. Because there's no market, because most of the trades that are probably going on these securities are with some would call penny for a lot, where people just say, I don't want the cheese anymore, just let me out of the trap, just give me a penny for it and we're done. That's a Wall Street term, but anyway, so we would think that the real mark-to-market value of these are probably where they were a couple of weeks ago and not much different.
Yeah, so are you saying it's still around 30 million because it's been locked up, or are you saying it's basically 0?
I would say it's probably somewhere less than 30 million, but it'd be very hard to calculate that. It's very it's very volatile. So when you had a article come out in the Wall Street Journal yesterday that talked about some hedge fund people that are going in and buying these securities, obviously one article like that makes the stuff run up.
Right. The other question I was curious on is, when you look at these tens of millions in losses to the retirement plan, can you talk? I know you alluded to some of the effort to sort of put some extra weight to get Congress to take action. Can you talk about your conversations with members of Congress and whether you think there's anything that will be done legislatively to sort of create a mechanism for you to recover these losses?
Thanks, Brian. The reason that we said what we said when we said it is that we knew that the first aid package was working its way through Congress at warp speed, and we were trying to hitchhike onto that legislation regarding building this exit ramp. That train left the station, but as you know, there's more Ukrainian aid packages that are coming through, so we're trying to hitchhike onto one of those bills. I specifically spoke to Senator Burr and Senator Tillis about this before we sent out the press release, because of their not only their interest, but because of the committees that they sit on. And I would like to say one more thing about this. We have a very active, we have had a very active securities litigation aspect of the Treasurer's Office when you manage one of the largest pools of public money in the world. You can just imagine that. And, for me to sign off to be the lead plaintiff against the white-collar criminal CEO of Peloton because of investment losses inside of our portfolio and not going after the murderous president of Russia for his invasion of Ukraine I'm not going to sit here and go after a CEO of Peloton and not go after what this person's done, not only to the country of Ukraine, but to the people of that country and also this pension plan. So what I'm trying to say, what I'm trying to say, Brian, is in some respects this is standard operating procedure. When people cause harm to this pension plan on behalf of those that teach, protect, and serve, and taxpayers like them, we have a duty of care and a loyalty to try to recoup that money, no matter if it's the CEO of Peloton or the president of Russia.
And can you talk about just the proposed bill language, or what the specific mechanism is to be able to basically sue these Russian-based entities?
We're working with some very talented subject matter experts who have a track record of suing terrorists who have conducted themselves in such a way so that part of monies can be recaptured, and they are helping because they are in Washington. They're helping us develop the language that would be necessary to put into a bill. So,
and that BlackRock single index fund is the only exposure to these Russian-based entities?
If I got a lot going through my head this morning, Brian, but I think that we also have a hedge fund or an active European money manager. This is one that I inherited, and I think there's possibly 600 or 700 million total in that fund, of which they may have some exposure also. But that 600 or 700 million is our total investment with them, of which these direct Russian investments would be another very small percentage.
Gotcha. Last question I had, unrelated, was for the local government commission today and what's going on in Spring Lake. For our viewers in the Raleigh area, can you explain why other places should be concerned about what's going on in Spring Lake?
Yes. Especially today and tomorrow, when we're dealing with hyperinflation in our economy, where it's costing more to eat and heat and drive. In many instances, with the lower and fixed income people of Spring Lake, I don't know what their sales tax expenditures are or their income tax liability is, but I would say their property taxes are probably their biggest tax burden. And to even question that the money that they're spending is not going toward its intended purpose for the essential services that they're supposed to be providing should be concerning everywhere. Now, we talk about Robersonville, we talk about Eureka, we talk about Spring Lake to the west, we talk about Kingstown, Cliffside Water and Sewer District, but let's also talk about, Brian, a Hosky. I don't think, and I say this sort of rhetorically, any of you on this call have reported on Apple Computer going to a Hosky, North Carolina, because it didn't happen. But a Hosky was in worse shape than Spring Lake is, except for the embezzlement. And a Hosky, over the 7-year period of time, through governance, through partnerships, through discipline, making the tough choices and challenging assumptions, a Hosky has gotten, they're living within their budget, they've paid off their debt, they're off the unit assistance list. Just another example of the fact that when we talk about all these broken systems, there are some shining examples of some communities who have made the right choice.
Thank you.
And lastly, any time, Brian, that we have any of this going on in North Carolina, even though we have a AAA bond rating, it just the reason this is so important to us is that I chair the local government commission, I chair the state banking commission, but we want to be known as a state that not just the state has a great credit rating, but also as many of these communities as possible.
Thanks, Brian. Do you have any other questions?
The $80 million, that's just from the BlackRock. That's not from that $700 million European money manager, correct?
That's total.
Okay, so $80 million for everything combined. Gotcha.
Yeah, and once again, when all this starts to unwind, whether it's on the debt side or the equity side, what's a direct investment, what isn't, everybody is scrambling to figure that out. Not only is McDonald's trying to figure out where their locations are and whether they should not be open or not, but there's a lot of unwinding that's going to have to take place in the financial securities world, both not only on the equity side but on the bond side. But we're talking about the equity side right now.
Right, and you say it's been locked up for weeks and it's still locked up today.
Yes.
Gotcha. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Brian.
Thanks, Brian. I know we had some other folks who were joining us today, and we want to make sure they have an opportunity to ask any questions they might have of the treasurer, so please feel free to jump in. Well, hearing none, we'll go to the treasurer for closing comments.
Just thank you all. I was in Western North Carolina on Friday and Saturday last week, looking at what's happening with the quality, the access, and the cost of health care in Western North Carolina as a result of the takeover of Mission Health by the for-profit company HCA. I can tell you that from everybody I spoke to, every place that I went, quality is down, access is down, and costs are up. And we continue to work on what's happening with regarding the weaponization of people's credit scores associated with medical billing. And these are some of the topics that we continue to work on. We are very proud, as you may have heard in the debt affordability, in the Council of State this morning, to report that not the DOT debt, but the general obligation debt of North Carolina is scheduled to fall 70% over 8 years, nearly 70%, and 5 of those years are already in the oven, and that's a result of what we talked about with these local governments. Governance, discipline, strategy, and so we're very proud of that, and I think that really helps us in these amazingly volatile economic times to continue to earn the credit scores that we get. Lastly, I just want to say, for those on the call, I was the recipient of the Sunshine Award at Elon University. That does not reflect my disposition, and I thought I'd just say that before anybody else did. That's not funny. Everybody hung up. But I'm very honored about that. We try to be the most transparent agency in the state, if not the country. You have a job to do in many instances, especially as it relates to some of the topics we deal with. We think that you're the last line of defense, and helping you do your job is what we try to also focus on. So we appreciate your interest in this Ask Me Anything call. We've had one every month since January of 2017, and we appreciate your interest in what's going on at the Treasurer's Office and all the things that result in us remaining in the check delivery business.
Thank you, Treasurer Folwell, and with that, we'll conclude. Thank you all for joining.